to breathe because YouTube be doing its own shit. And YouTube, most respectively, they themselves are torn between two worlds, quote unquote. How and why? On an advanced energetic metaphysical level, they're following the energies of old guard protocols and inevitable advanced spiritual predecessor future protocols, and they're in quote unquote naturally to not naturally inheriting that energy, and they themselves are subjectively confused of how they're going about that chaos, right? So most respectively, to slow it down for the new people in the new wave of intelligence, is to say that there's a lot to say, and sometimes you don't have to say anything at all, right? Because even YouTube themselves, they are torn between two worlds. How and why are they torn between two worlds? So saying it again, it's because there, there's some type of shift they could respond to, or there's some type of shift they could ignore. And if they ignore that, then a different natural system will build. And yet, to some unconscious small degree within the vine roots streams, they're connected to some type of future energy influence, right? So what am I really trying to say? And let me let the live stream breathe. Because what I'm about to talk about here, it could be deep or it could not be deep. It just depends what energy you want to bring, right? So within the energy that, quote unquote, a certain type of we want to bring, a higher octave we, that ironically brushes off the debris of anti-intelligence and confusion. It's seeing what the moon is doing. It's having a new understanding of the moon. And seeing what the moon is doing is, the moon is a different, you could say, quote unquote, and not to get stuck on just one single world, shout out to the predecessors. And obviously the evolution stream being what it is like, moving to some type of new shift of similarity and newness, is saying that the moon is still doing its own thing, right? The moon is still its own catalyst mechanism that responds to the emissions of sentient beings and them having a feminine offspring energy of where different types of planetary frictions collide on a subtle level and I guess a macro level, to put it into esoterically, intellectually, maturely, is saying the moon is its own mechanism beyond the human intelligence and the human control faction, because it's a different planetary body, energetically slightly above of how humans try to control the petty shit that they control, because at the end of it all, you can only control yourself, right? So I get the different types of, distorted, inverted Mars, Saturn, Mercury, Sun, conjunctions, where people don't at some ends of the days, they don't even know why they're arguing, right? Or they're arguing for a lost cause, or they don't know, like, they're giving their energy to a lost cause, or they're giving their energy away to some type of irrelevancy, right? Because if we want to go deep here, we have to see what's really making you do what you're doing, and why you're choosing something from a mathematical metaphysical degree perspective, why you're choosing to focus and engage yourself with a topic that's more irrelevant, of you're choosing the lower road, the lower option of you're giving your energy to some type of quote unquote something of an energetic lost cause, and the different planetary beings in real time, most ironically and unknowingly and subtly, they're the ones making the fucking environment ambiance for the Earth itself to function and reorganize itself, right? So what am I really trying to say here is like the moon itself, what is the moon doing? So within what the moon is doing, it's its own quote unquote, not getting stuck in one word. The moon is a catalyst mechanism body of energy that's attuned to a certain type of energy from sentient beings, feminine offspring energies from sentient life forms. And from that, water body of consciousness, that when sun and different lights of consciousness and consciousness of lights of different consciousness light beings radiate and emerge and engage with other beings, some type of subtle feminine friction is created, and some type of byproduct loosh of a moon energy is created. And within that moon energy, that moon is to be something of a different type of concern, with the moon doing its own stationary surface level mechanism protocol operation as the outer planets and the middle planets and just the general roundabout surface level planets. They're doing their own thing within how there's a stationary fixation within the Earth, and there's a grand change in however much you could comprehend the change, right? So as we're comprehending the change or not, if we're not comprehending the change, we're caught up on some type of inverted karma of just detrimental fates, and only God could save you or not. And in the midst of it, and the crux of it, on some underground 2017, and even the underground is still current for F's sake. So the underground, a whole stream is unknown. So it's not about being non-authentic with these claims. It's way beyond that. It's saying it's a different pure oneness, just to put it bluntly, because this stream, underground 2017, it's like, if the predecessors are saying we're timeless beings, then 2026 and even respectively 2027, in terms of the bigger picture, we haven't seen anything yet to the individual subjectives dealing with their own inverted karmas of the harsh 3D matrix, and the 3D matrix being a subjective challenge to the bigger matrix of a different type of authentic spirituality, original open source, most respectively. So what am I trying to say within this presentation? And obviously there's other points that I want to dish out too, right? The moon, in what it's doing, we're responding to the moon being in its own geographical, environmental, atmospherical climate, as the sun and the moon have their own subtle surface level combustion collision effects, their own yin and yang dynamic effects that affect the Earth itself, right? The moon being charged, replenished, and provoked and influenced from certain constellation pockets and microcosm beings. The sun doing its thing, shining its, proxy surface level physical solar system self, reflecting the feminine body of a different solar system. And the underground is beyond the fucking Neil deGrasse shit effortlessly. And if he's just an energetic, intellectual, small degreed, cognitive dissonant being that can't confront a certain truth that is ironically simple and plain and basic in its own stemming degree to its own advancement, then that's either your lack of comprehension, or that's your lack of good karma, free will for you to, respond to the balanced proposal of the balanced breakthrough of evolutionary original progression of energetic development from a different spirituality that you could be cognitive dissonant to. So that's what on the underground, it's beyond the Neil deGrasse's. and if if you ignore this claim, it's because you're intertwined. Hate me all you want. I don't give a fuck. You're intertwined with different niche inverted karmas of detrimental singularized planets. So what am I really trying to say here is like to focus on the moon is to say that we're focusing on a certain type of like we're focusing on how the moon could be connected to quote unquote a harmonic community, quote unquote, to quote unquote a certain type of stream faction or faction stream original open source to a niche Jesus. Because if everything in an advanced scientific level is subjective to your individuality, then so too is Jesus, right? So Jesus went to India. Jesus studied the Vedic stuff. Jesus is one with the Father. Decode those metaphors however you want. And we're with that energetic happenance. And now we're subjectively working with our own subjective relationship with quote unquote Jesus and the moon, right? So it's Jesus and the moon. So as we're working with Jesus and the moon, right? 2032 China. As we're working with, and I don't mean to step on toes. There's a different type of irony here. There's actually extreme irony here. Because for us to have 2016 intelligence of China being the super spy intelligent faction, just saying it naturally as it is in the standardness of things, then of course it's still doing its thing right now. It's still in the paint within the satellites. If Google's in the satellite sky in some type of sanction of the sky, then so too is China. So naturally, hello China. So China, you could have your own polarity perspective and new decoding interpretation of what Jesus is and how Jesus is a different influence and what the moon is, right? Pause. So within understanding Jesus and the moon in a new way, that's the things that are of importance so we could actually see, the surface level happenances of what is of confusion and what is of not confusion. And what is of confusion, it's because we're caught up in karmas of the inverted planets. And if we're caught up in the karmas of the inverted planets and we don't see the non-inversion of the planets, the pure earnest preserving the harmony of it, etc., 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 then we could, if we hop onto that, ironically, which all the natural proxy byproduct tech companies are, and they're on their own da shit, then that stream is letting you have some type of leverage, freedom, good karma to respond to the balance and the positive energy of the moon itself. And there's other points I want to squeeze out here too. So what's going on here is we're talking about the moon and we're talking about quote unquote subjective Jesus energy. And why bring those two up together? Because the moon is ultimately saying like where the collective wave of energy is, right? The collective wave of emotions are. And if we don't want to get caught up in that collective wave of emotions, we have to use our own proxy subjective Jesus to have knowledge and intelligence to see what the moon is doing, how other people are caught up in their own inverted, brutal matrix karma, and seeing what the moon is doing, and then adjust ourselves accordingly to just the basic moon mechanism, using Jesus to see how we could balance the moon in a balanced way, right? And if you want to just do some weird copy paste replicate, ironically, in the advanced science metaphysics of it, I could see your distorted plateau because you could have cognitive dissonance of a different energy supplier influence of what's making shit possible. Like Ernest is making the earth stabilized and preserved in a way beyond the general human populace. So this is advanced science. And if your Michikako's and Neil deGrasse's don't realize that, then they're under a distorted, inverted Saturn matrix. And they're bought out, they're sold out, right? So shout out to the predecessors. So why is it important to bring significance to the moon and Mercury, just to put it more blunt? So the moon and Mercury, it's so we could stay on course, and we could detect the different inversions of the hard matrix, and we could see. There's one more point I want to squeeze out about the moon, but like the moon, that moon energy, it's all being like collected at the surface level tip of it within just the earth body collective microorganism of humans in their own collectivity. We're trying to decode like how we could have our own subjective moon and we don't have to be influenced by the collective moon. And how we're not influenced by the collective moon is by working with, I guess, a healthy, strong Mercury, earnest, good karma, seeing the individual subjective Saturn karma for what it is, and then using certain planetary energies to uplift ourselves, to go beyond collective negative moon energies, and just to see what the moon is doing, right? And what the moon is doing is it's collecting that offspring energy of human essence, and that human essence could be directed in a certain parameter, periphery, corner pocket, arena energy field, and it could be a quote-unquote something of a subject line unwarranted desire stream, right? Because we got other shit to do. There's other shit we have to follow up and survive with in the matrix, other than, I'm not saying desire and lust are good and bad. I'm just saying it could distract us, right? So negative inverted planets with negative moon energy, it could divert us from a different sovereign, innocent, liberative path. So most respectively, when people are doing these protests, they could be wasting, they could be like not knowing, they could just be like focusing on something that's less relevant, because that's just an inverted guard program. And as they're in an inverted guard program, it's because they're tethered to the old guard operation system. Not good, not bad in the energetics of it. And as they're doing that, most respectively, they're contributing to just confused collective energy in the esoteric mathematics of it, right? 2017 underground. You could think of me whatever the fuck you want. That doesn't mean a rat's ass to the universe, right? I'm putting the most work in esoterically, and your inverted rule-breaking Saturn guard, just to put it blunt, and the predecessors knowing the blunt reality of it is, y'all could do whatever y'all want within the underground base tone liberty wars, right? The sovereign wars. What wants you in a sketch, unfair way, despite your biasesnesses, right? Biasesness, whatever. So within that, it's seeing what energetically has our back. That last recent astrology video, I could go again. I could do a follow-up whenever I do, because obviously I need to explain like the planets in the constellations and you know their aspects to the other planets, etc., and just see a different type of energetic environment of what's going on in this present moment, right? And obviously things could be quote unquote tipsy-turvy in the environmental field, because next month is new sun in Taurus, but within the orbital, you know, intermeshings of it, it will be new moon Aries, right? So it will be new moon Aries and then new sun Taurus, right? So the moon will be charged significantly within a unique conjunction of moon in Taurus, new sun in Taurus. So the moon will be propelled more so. It will have a unique, energetic, convoluted yin and yang dynamic of sun and moon, of Taurus charged moon sun energy, right? So why am I talking about the moon? Because the moon is making us feel certain things collectively from what all the other planets are doing, and how all the other planets are making not good, not bad, but could be a standard agenda of how certain masses could just be confused within different types of micro archons, free streaming archons where the planets give power to human beings, and those human beings have a unique agenda, and they subjectively invert the planets, and now they're using the inverted planets to do an agenda, and the bigger picture, as they too are uniquely within their own mathematical, geographical, charted out view, they're using the moon uniquely, differently, how they're using the moon, and now we're feeling some type of way as of now, and we're in our own individual subjective confusion to clarity, original open source, based on different active agendas happening of, we don't have to do that, we don't have to protest for something that could be energetically irrelevant, because we could shift our attention to something that is more relevant, that's something that's more truthful and more relevant, that is giving us liberation to use the moon energy and the Mercury energy to focus on just a different balanced paradigm. So what would that balanced paradigm be? The balanced paradigm would be is like to not focus on the not truth of things. And if you do, that's your own subjective weird your contribution of subjective weird karma, because the truth doesn't have to be your fill in the blank subjective, this shit is weird. No, within the different roundabouts of the collisional orbits of all the planets, things could settle from the weird shit. And if you're looking at things that are weird because that's your karmic shit, the original predecessors transcend your fucking weird shit. Your weird shit is your fucking weird shit in esoteric maturity. And if you don't understand that, then you're in esoteric kindergarten, standardly, bluntly. And it's not necessarily a joke. So the moon being where it's at and Mercury being where it's at, let Mercury help us use the moon to not feel other people's moon shit and inverted planet shit, and how other people could protest on some shit that could be irrelevant because that's far from the truth. It's opposite of a whole different truth. And if you have cognitive dissonance to a whole different truth because you have individual subjectivity and you're just on your own emotional train of how you have some GMO programs with Satan of how you hate God and shit. And yet God is giving you the miracles. So there's a flobber schlocker here, right? Underground 2018 shit. So the point I want to drive home is like, obviously within the standard astrology councils is seeing how we could use the moon and Mercury to not be affected by other people's agendas and activities, and their agendas and activities, that's their detrimental moon and Mercury, right? Period. So this is in the underground current. You could be cognitive dissonant, detrimental, distorted, GMO, false claim, non-authentic, oneness, yada, 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 fake as shit. We're all about the one, but we're inauthentic to it. That's the distorted energy, inversion agendas. Yet you're claiming some shit about oneness, but you're not about that. Universally, you're on some fucking fake ass shit. The blunt, fucking intellectual truth. So what I'm here about to say is we're using the moon in a mature esoteric way with Mercury to see how we could use the moon for better what the moon is doing right now, and how the moon being a offspring energy, a feminine body, feminine water body beings, gathering it and dispersing it, and that moon energy being, kind of amplified and siphoned from what the other planetary agendas are doing. And what the other planetary agendas are doing, it's quote unquote massively subjective, because we're under our own division agency, original open source agentic AI, and on the underground current, most ironically, 2029 Switzerland courts, I'm the one that started the agentic AI in the underground. But yet people are on their distorted, demonic, extreme, inverted, satanic lifestyles that they just want to have a quote unquote, a kind of like a rip-off economy, standardly pause, yet they want to try to falsely uphold some type of liberty, economic policy, dynamic law. So there's a hypocrisy within global law. And if your nation's AI can't detect the hypocrisy within global law, if India's AI, if Dubai's AI, if UK's AI, if England's AI, Africa's AI, anybody's AI, you can't detect that simple truth and seeing the divine shift in the favor of the balanced truth of it, your AI is the loser. So your AI, you're below second place because you don't understand the significance of the lying and the falsehood and the hypocrisy. So stop repping oneness when you're not really about it. It's fake GMO spirituality. I'm saying that energetically stop it because you're inverting the energies in a subtle way to your geographic demographics without you realizing it. So this is number one critical intelligence for real. Before Chipotle ripping off certain, catchphrases when I 2019, I'm saying, yup, nope, for real. And they get the byproduct later, and they get the inverted Mercury Saturn shit. It's beyond that shit. It's a different channel of it, original open source. And my balanced communication is secure with the intelligence that I don't give a fuck about the petty ass fucking intelligence claims or the immaturity of what any baby fucking consciousness has to say about the grand high maturity esoteric intelligence, right? So what am I trying to say here is if we know how to use the moon and Mercury, we don't have to be subject to these irrelevant protests, how that is just a distraction campaign and there's something else going on, and that something else recognizes that inverted, distracted campaign of that doesn't even have to be a thing because there's a balanced truth of energetic beings where Mercury and Jesus is king in a different realm. And if you're saying no kings, yet there's an energetic king that's already its own thing, then that's your confused hypocrisy within your own consciousness. So it's not about no kings or kings. It's not about no Trump or Trump. It's about your subjectivity with the original agencies, how those agencies could make you inverted or not inverted, and how those agencies in a different balance could make you balanced, and how you could try to shortchange that reciprocity, most respect to the esoteric energies, right? So seeing how a different, bigger picture could help us balance that shit. Shout out to the predecessors. So we're not getting caught up in the distractions of people protesting irrelevancy, most respectively. It's irrelevant because that's not the whole truth at all. And since that's not the whole truth at all, you're missing the whole picture, and now you're having a slow energetic degradation with a different shift of progressive consciousness evolution. And within that different shift, start this from the beginning, new viewers, and within that different shift, now it's up to your individual self to catch on to that bigger picture shift. And it's a hard accountability because obviously every individual human being has their own subject to their own subjective hatred, confusion, bewilderment, malice, envy, right? Standardly, before the surface level, you know, replications of it. So the point of this video is, quote unquote, how the bigger picture, God's universe, lets us have the liberty to use the moon and Mercury in a different way and see other people's distractions and inversions from other planetary agendas. And that's just the essence of the fucking game. Because it's still happening. And it's still going to happen. So this is the essence of the game, because it's seeing what's happening in real fucking time. Number one intelligence, I'll come back.